All right, for segment one today, I am going to start a 4-part video series on combat in Alien RPG. This first one is going to talk about time, how time segments are used in the game, the range system, and we'll dive into sneak attacks, things that happen before the main combat round starts. See how basically you lead into combat and how you might how those considerations are for the mechanics in combat. And then the second video, the one after this one, will be all about the combat mechanics. So let's take a look at our preliminaries here in just a moment. We welcome all people, regardless of background, belief, or identity, to play tabletop role-playing games. Let's engage our imaginations, pull a veil over reality, and immerse ourselves in fantastic worlds. Don't be a disruption at the table, and always remember, it's just a game. The charity we support is the Wounded Warrior Project, a national, nonpartisan organization whose mission is to honor and empower wounded warriors. Please refer to the description below for the link to where you can make your hopefully tax-deductible donation. Join us Thursday and Saturday evenings on twitch.tv/legionofmyth to watch Heathen Dog and his team of dirty casuals play multiplayer games for your mockery and enjoyment. Here on our YouTube channel, you can watch these game-related segments live every Sunday at 1 p.m. Central Time, or check out the Friday night stream where our panel of guests opine, comment, and editorialize on the TTRPG hobby as a whole. Please leave us a comment with your thoughts and experiences. If you enjoy our gaming content, please be sure to subscribe to Legion of Myth. Boom, there's our book, our alien book. That's not ominous at all, is it? He's just kind of walking.
That's fine. That's fine. That's a pretty summer day right there. No
I
fear,
tried
no anxiety.
I tried to get ChatGPT to give me some images that were this cool. It wasn't doing it. like it basically wants the colonial marine and the alien to talk to each other like they're buddies. Like, hey man. It's like, no, that's not what I'm looking for. All right, let's what page do I need to start on? It says 81, so that was that like 84 here? Let's find out. Let's start with 84. That sounds fun. Ah, it's close. Scroll down. Combat and panic. Well, we're not getting to panic today. Time and space. So we'll skip that first part there. It's just like saying, hey, we're introducing you to combat. Maps and zones. If you are familiar with the User Engine games, it generally works the way most of the games work. If you're not, well, let's talk about how it uses zones and maps. The conflict in the Alien role-playing game is typically played out using a map of the starship, colony, or whatever location your characters happen to find themselves fighting for their lives in. Well, it's a long sentence. The maps are pretty good. At least for the published adventures, I will say that the ones that I've seen, the maps are pretty good, and they make it really easy to determine what a zone is. What's a zone? We'll get to that in a moment. But I do like the published maps. I also have seen people, and this would be something that I would do, convert old Traveler maps to make their own spaceships, and because Traveler maps are very specific, and they're laid out in a very specific manner, so you can get the zones pretty easily from those as well. And I'm sure there are other games that do it. The map is divided into zones. A zone is typically a room, a corridor, or an area of ground. How big a zone is varies from a few steps across to about 25 meters. A zone is generally smaller in a cramped environment than in open terrain. Think about it, if you're in the bulkhead of a ship and you're kind of stepping over wires and doors are opening and closing and so forth, that little room you're in is pretty much the zone. If you're shooting out maybe directly into the hallway, it might be considered the same zone. But if you're shooting across into another room, you got doors in the way, you got things going on, that's going to be considered another zone, generally speaking. In official scenarios and other materials for this game, zones are usually indicated on a location map. In random encounters created on the fly, the GM can make it a quick sketch of the area or simply describe it. Hold on a second. What was all that spam there? Well, apparently it just came up 3 times. Weird.
Yeah, it did. I don't know why. I mean, okay. Stupid phone. Oh, it's a phone. Okay, yeah, he must have triple tapped by accident.
Okay. Playing without maps, although this is for you theater to the mind folks. That's me. I'm a theater to the mind guy. Although maps can be useful, you can always choose not to use them and let certain conflicts play out in the theater of the mind. Oh, look at that. They actually use the term. This can be a good solution in close quarters conflicts between a small number of combatants. The only thing you have to be careful of with that is explaining to your characters, to the players in decent detail without boring them, so they understand that it's a zone. You could always say, okay, that's a zone, that's a zone, that's a zone, that's boring, that's not good theater of the mind, GMing, but you could do it that way, or just describe it well enough where when you add in the multipliers or take away the dice that people understand what's going on. And get to that description in a moment. Borders and line of sight. The border between two adjacent zones can be open or blocked by a wall or a bulkhead. A blocked border can have a door or a hatch as indicated by the map, allowing movement between the two zones. Open borders don't block vision or movement. A blocked border generally blocks line of sight even if there is a door or hatch in it, unless you're actively standing by the doorway and peeking through. This is not a well-written rule, at least at this point. And the reason is because I already hear the complaints, and I'll just be honest, I haven't run Alien, but I've seen it in the other games that I've run. People are like, well, hold on. If I'm standing back here, I should be able to see it at an angle out there. Yes. Don't take these rules as black and white end. What this essentially is like, hey, if there's a door in the way, just because you're 2 feet from something, if I shut my door to this room, I mean, I could shoot blindly through the wooden door because, it's just a wooden door, but my chance of hitting something are low. If you want an effective means of shooting without being blinded or whatever, you've got to have a good line of sight. And then there's range. Like if I'm in my room here and I want to shoot my wife in the kitchen, because why not? I've got this door here. I've got a sliding door which she has shut right now, I see. And then she's in the kitchen. That's at least 2 zones. The zone I'm in, it's just a small space between the kitchen door, so maybe that doesn't count as a second zone. But then she's in a zone afterwards. You're bypassing, or you're shooting from one zone to another. You're shooting through a zone. That's how it'd be termed.
Plus, your wife is small. Her hitboxes are real tiny.
That is true. She's Japanese, so yeah. But the point being is, don't make this more complicated than it is. A lot of simulationist players get really hung up on this stuff and just stop. You're here, somebody's in another room, it's another zone. You're here, you're in a field, the person's 25 or more yards away, meters, whatever, away. If person's in another zone, it basically just means it's not a short range shot anymore, it's a medium range shot. Just move on. Just move on, okay? And here you can see the range. Engage, they use a different term here, but use engage for melee attacks. So it's right next to you, short, few meters away in the same zone as you. So, if Heathen Dog was in my same, this is technically the master bedroom that I turned into an office. If he's in the same master bedroom here, he'd be even if he's over at my unboxing desk, he'd be in the same zone. Up to 25 meters away in an adjacent zone, that would be my wife now in the kitchen, through the door, through the other door, over there. Long range, about 100 meters away, that'd be my neighbor. And then extreme, about 1 kilometer, well, that's, going to be down the road a bit. So it's very simple. Don't overthink it. And yeah, we'll just leave it there. Measuring time. In the alien universe, time matters. Whether you are awaiting rescue on an alien world with xenomorphs stalking you, or mother is counting down to the imminent destruction of your ship, well, that's fun time. You need to keep track of time. There are 3 separate units of time used in the game, depending on the situation at hand. See the table below. The exact duration of a round, turn, and shift can vary depending on the situation. Thank you for saying that. I think it's too pedantic, but my God, have I seen people argue about this stuff. These can fluctuate to some degree. You don't need a stopwatch. And I've literally seen people do that, not in Alien, but in other games like this. Literally use a stopwatch. That's all you can do. It's a game. Be more free-flowing with it. Come on, guys. It's the GM's job to track time and determine when another round, turn, or shift has passed. There are typically 4 shifts in a day: morning, day, evening, and night. People who have played Forbidden Lands will recognize that as quarter days, but here they're called shifts. I think shift is now the new term that they're using for all games. A round is 5 to 10 seconds. Its primary use is in combat. A turn is 5 to 10 minutes. Its primary use is in stealth. Wait a minute, 5 to 10 minutes to stealth? You're not running.
No, and every step you take is very deliberate, very, very quiet, and very slow. So it's going to take longer to do anything.
Right, and it's usually not used to stealth yourself from here to something 5 feet from you. It's usually like, I need to get from here through the engineering section. And the engineering section could be, 20 meters long. And if there are people looking out for you, if they're, combat drones or xenomorphs or colonial marines that are panicking, wanting to shoot everything that they see moving, it's going to take you a moment. Real stealth takes time. And then a shift is 5 to 10 hours. And, again, if you're used to the quarter days from Forbidden Lands, you could just make them each 6 hours. But the reason that variance is there is because, we're used to an 8-hour day, right? Well, you could say that's your shift is 8 hours. That's one shift. Be flexible with that. A shift could be 5, it could be 10, it could be somewhere in between. Not all shifts have to be the same either, depending on what's going on in the game. I play with too many people that really concern themselves with time, by the way. Zone features. Now, we've talked about zone distances, and we've talked about, I wouldn't call them shapes, but the idea of what a zone is. Well, there are features of a zone. Be cluttered. The zone is filled with debris or machinery. You must roll mobility when you move into the zone. It says into, not through. Mm-hmm. Failure means you managed to get into the zone, but you fall down. You tripped over the stupid thing that was on the ground. Wire came out and grabbed you because it likes to do that. Oh no, that was a xenomorph hand. My bad. Something just got in your way, and you don't have to fall face first. You just tripped over something. Okay. Now, we'll get to what that means later, what falling down is when we start talking more combat. But dark. Now, this is going to be a common theme in Alien, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
The zone is dimly lit. Observation rolls in the zone get a -2 modification. What does -2 mean, Heathen Dog?
That'd be -2 to your end result roll?
No, -2 to the base dice you roll.
Oh, the base dice. I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. Okay, so observation would be what? Wits? What's the attribute?
Yeah, I think it's wits.
Yeah, wits. So you would add that to your skill and then take away 2 dice and then roll.
Yeah. So if your observation is 3 and your wits is 3, you have 6 dice. Well, you have -2. Now you're rolling 4 dice.
But if you had the cool colonial marine radar thing, that could offset it.
Yeah, the gear absolutely. Gear can offset it.
Bonus for the gear dice. Yeah.
And we'll talk about that in 2 or 3 weeks when we cover gear. We'll actually look at and see what how that works for you.
Cool.
Then, so ranged attacks into the zone also suffer 2 modification and can't pass through the zone. Okay, let's talk about that a second, because this threw me off. I know the English is plain as day, but this threw me off at first. Again, in a different game, but use the same rule. You can shoot from this zone into the next zone.
Sure.
So the adjacent zone, you can shoot, no problem. You cannot shoot into the zone following it. That is what this means. So I can shoot from my office into the little hallway. I cannot shoot from my office into the kitchen if that hallway is considered an adjacent zone. If it's not considered an adjacent zone, then I can.
Really?
Yes. So think of it like this. You're on a narrow ship, okay? And you got some bulkheads, you got you got the long corridor, and then you've got a compartment, airlock compartment, and then you've got, I don't know, the bridge. We'll just say that. If it is dark, as in barely any lighting, maybe just your monitor, maybe just the strobe of a red, emergency light, whatever, you can shoot from here into the airlock, into the next zone, but you can't shoot into the bridge unless it's considered the same zone. Now, somebody could easily argue, well, that's a really small area. I don't consider it a zone. I consider it part of the current zone you're in or part of the bridge. Then you could, but that'll be something that's described by your game master. And they're pretty clearly indicated on the maps, by the way, at least the alien maps. But the point is you can shoot into the next zone. You cannot shoot through the next zone. And I don't know why I struggled with that at first, but.
Well, I as a plain reading, when you first read it, to me, it means that you cannot shoot into an adjacent zone from the zone you're in. You can only fire on things that are in your zone. That's what I read when I look at that.
Let me read it again. You're right. I wonder if Alien changes this, because I got into an argument with somebody over this on Forbidden Lands. This is years ago. and it changed how I looked at this. I wonder if Alien writes it different. But actually, as the strict reading of this goes, take back the last 2 to 3 minutes of what I was saying. Ranged attacks into the zone. See, that was the word that was the issue.
I just saw that too. If you're already in the zone, you're not attacking into the zone you're in because you're already in that zone.
Yeah, you can shoot into. So I was right. You can shoot into adjacent zones. You can't
pass through that other zone you're shooting into.
Right.
You can't shoot into a zone that you're already in.
Right.
That doesn't make any sense.
You can't pass those. Somebody who's outside of your zone can't pass through your zone to get to the adjacent. So the one next to you. So the easy way of just remembering it, you can shoot into the next zone over with that -2. You cannot shoot to a zone after that one. And that really comes into play into long range stuff that can actually be 4 zones.
Okay. Yeah.
So I was right in that. So yeah, it's the wording of this, and like I said, I got into an argument
very poorly. It should have said something like, "You can shoot into an adjacent zone, but not through an adjacent zone."
Yeah,
in the dark. That would have been great, but they went the other way.
Because the way you originally read it is how I originally read it, and like I said, I got in that huge argument, and right, wrong, or otherwise, he convinced me that I was wrong. So, and that's not easy.
Yes.
All right.
Hang on. Okay. It says, all right, why don't range attack that occur within that zone also suffer? They do. If you look at the second sentence. No. Actually, no. It says observation rolls in the zone are -2. Range combats into. See, it says the zone though, and the zone we're talking about is the zone we're in.
Observation rolls in the zone get a -2 modification. Got it. -2 dice.
The zone we're in is a -2, and you can shoot through it, but you have to shoot in the zone you're in. So you get a -2 to your ranged attack, whether it's in the same zone or the adjacent zone.
Maybe that's Maybe that's why it is worded the way it is. I would have preferred if they would have used an extra sentence in there for clarification.
A little more words to clarify. Yeah.
I can tell you in my Forbidden Lands games that I run, I do not apply the penalty if they are in the same zone. That might be wrong.
It seems like it's wrong because in the sentence is range attacks into the zone, not your zone, not the adjacent zone, the zone, which means it's referring to the zone that was established earlier in the sentence, which is the zone is dimly lit. That's the zone you're in. So it's still talking about the zone you're in.
It doesn't necessarily have to be the zone you're in. You could be in a well-lit zone and the next one over isn't. And you'd suffer, and you want to see what's in that next zone, you'd be at the -2. So really what this could use is A, an example, and B, clear a couple, 1 or 2 extra sentences that actually that make that clear. That's what I would, if I was I was a technical writer, but if this was something that came across my desk, I would actually say add clarification.
Yeah. And Violence Solves Everything says by plain text, it reads shooting into a dark zone gets you the -. It doesn't say anything about the zone you're in. It doesn't clarify, but if you're in the dark, why don't you get a -? It doesn't make sense. If there's a minus for shooting into a dark zone, there should be a minus from shooting into a dark zone from a dark zone, which is your zone. It's still the same thing. You're still encumbered by the dark. So you really
I didn't do it in Forbidden. I didn't do it in Forbidden Lands for just ease of play. We didn't dive into like what we're doing right now is more theory crafting. This is more Pathfinder style play right now. Is like worrying about every instance of the rule. I just wanted to keep the game flowing, and so I was like, you know what, you're close enough where you can generally see each other, unless it was pitch black. I did something different as pitch black, but if it's just low lighting conditions, I didn't apply the -2 penalty if you were in the zone and your target was in the same zone.
Mm-hmm.
That was maybe that's a house rule, but that's just how I did it to keep the game moving. Okay. So, all right, cramped. A crawl space or a narrow tunnel. In a cramped zone, you can only crawl, not run. Well, right? In a Jeffries tube, you're not running down one of those things, right?
Sure.
You also cannot move or shoot past individuals next to you against targets behind them. Why do you think that is?
What?
So I can't turn. If you're behind me, crawling behind me, I can't turn.
Nope, that's not what it says.
Okay, a crawl space or narrow in a cramped zone, you can only crawl, not run. You also cannot move or shoot past individuals next to you against targets behind them. Yeah, that's if you're behind me and I try to shoot past you to hit the xenomorph, I can't do it.
You're not behind me. You're next to me.
Yeah, you're going to be single file.
Oh, see, that is not. That's not a given.
Well, it's either you're laying on top of me, which
no.
Also
think of it this way: when it could be a translation error, but when you think of someone as next to me, you don't think of them as in front or behind you. You think of them as left to right.
No, I picture them either in front or behind me because I pictured low crawling through a tunnel.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry for your mother.
Well, you can say what you want. I've got the experience with the games, and that's how it works in those tunnels. So I haven't seen one yet where everybody's just going side by side, shimmying down a wall. Well, that can happen. So it's always been crawling through something, and you're basically single file and trying to shoot a xenomorph behind you. Well, unless you want me to shoot you, it's not going to happen.
No, I believe that. Yeah, in front or behind. Yeah, you can't shoot past someone in front or behind if it's cramped. I get it. That's perfect sense. It's understandable. Again, they're having an English problem.
There's no English problem in that.
Next is not in front or behind.
Yes, it is. Next is anywhere next to you. That could be up, down. 6 points of articulation, or not articulation.
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well,
I'm sorry,
maybe you need to learn some math and some physics.
No, I got all that. Don't worry about it. Let's just move on.
Stealth mode. We'll wait for the comments. We'll see what commenters say.
I already starred one.
Well, per is wrong, though, so.
Oh, see? Oh, the comments are wrong now? All right, gotcha. All right, got it.
Let's see. In stealth mode, enemy movement is handled secretly by the GM. This is carried out each turn after your PCs have moved. NPCs must comply with the same rules of movement as PCs. Human NPCs can only move 2 zones per turn. I wonder if this is like... if there's an adjustment to that. But 2 zones per turn. So remember, if you've got a long zone, which can be 4 zones, right? Or sorry, long range, which can be 4 zones, you're only getting halfway through in a turn.
Okay.
No. Non-human characters may move faster or have other special rules. To handle NPC movement, we recommend that the GM has a second copy of the conflict map hidden from view by the GM screen, available for purchase separately. Of course it is. On this map, the GM can place tokens to represent NPCs hidden from the player's view. If your GM doesn't have access to a screen, she can simply track hidden NPCs movement on a piece of paper. What I did in Forbidden Lands is that's what I did. I just put it on a piece of paper.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I don't know why that needed like 3 paragraphs, but okay.
Active and passive enemies. Enemies can be active or passive as dictated by the scenario or the GM. Active enemies are aware of you and are actively stalking you. Passive enemies are not aware of your presence and can be ambushed by you.
Okay.
That doesn't mean passive doesn't mean standing still necessarily. It could just be walking around.
Yeah, a guard who is actively keeping an eye out but hasn't found you is considered passive, but he's not doing nothing. He is
if he's aware of you, I don't know. I think that would still be active. If he's looking for you, he's active. Like there's somebody in the area.
See, it says active enemies are aware of you and actively stalking you. Passive enemies are not aware of you or your presence and can be ambushed. Didn't say anything about not actively stalking, just not aware. So if a guard is looking for you but hasn't found you, he'd be considered passive because he's not aware of you.
Yeah,
he's aware of the idea of you, that there are enemies out there.
Well, we'll see what the rules are here, but off the cuff, I'd say no. Somebody who's aware of your existence is aware of you. Might not be aware that you're right there, but is aware. I heard that. Where was it? I know that we're on high alert. There's something going on. I mean, we'll see what it says here when it comes to skill rolls, but...
that'll probably answer in stealth, yeah.
In stealth mode, you automatically detect passive enemies in the same zone or line of sight. If you make no attempt to move quietly, passive enemies will automatically detect you as well. Draw initiative. So if you're not stealthing...
The guard who is actively looking for you but doesn't know where you are, unless you are trying to be stealthy, he's definitely going to find you.
If you want to sneak past the passive enemies undetected or make a sneak attack, roll for mobility against observation. You get a modification based on the distance to the enemy. See the table on the next page. Okay. Active enemies nearby may try to sneak up on you for a sneak attack. Okay, that does give a little more clarification that the active enemy has to be moving. If so, the GM informs you that the threat is moving in on you and then rolls mobility for the enemy against your observation. If you fail, the enemy gets a free attack against you. I'll read more about sneak attacks in page 9. Actually, that's pretty normal. So I apparently in this one, yes, the active is actually stalking you, not just alerted.
Yeah.
Okay. So you cannot spot active enemies that choose to remain hidden and don't attack you. Oh, really? Unless you have detected them using a motion tracker first. The GM deems it obvious that you spot the enemy. For example, you search the exact spot where it's hidden.
Sure.
And that's kind of common in the Free League games. If you look where something is, you find where something is. You don't have to make some sort of weird roll. So, yeah, okay, so that does clarify it a little bit more. Active really means that the person is stalking you effectively, and passive would be... I don't like the terminology, but passive would be the guard that's on high alert but isn't exactly,
sure of where you are. Because, even if he knows you're out there somewhere, you could be on the side of him and still get a free attack on him because he wasn't thinking you were exactly right there.
Right. I would think that he wouldn't get a penalty of the roll, though. I mean, if something's going on,
No. There was no penalty in roll. It was a successful sneak attack gets you a free attack. That's it. Before initiative, right? You just get an attack if you successfully stealthed on somebody and then attacked.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's fine. There's no minuses to the guy who's the guard. He just got snuck up on. He just, get good, scrub. That's it.
Yeah.
Get your observation up.
For some reason, I feel like, again, maybe I'm not remembering Forbidden Lands correctly. I just ran it a few weeks ago.
Well, you again, with all this Free League stuff, you can't compare nuance to games because each game has its own nuance. So
yeah, that's true. That is true. And I might be misremembering too. So a useful piece of gear in stealth mode is a motion tracker, such as the M314 unit. Once you can use a motion tracker once per turn, and each time you use it, you must make a power supply roll. What was a turn again? Wasn't that the 5 to 10 minutes?
5 to 10 minutes, yeah. But is it good throughout the entire turn?
Well, we'll find out.
Yeah, well, I hope so.
The tracker will automatically detect the presence of any large moving objects within a long range up to 4 zones. That's actually pretty far.
Even indoors.
Yeah, indoors and extreme range outdoors. So you get a kilometer and let you know which zone they're in. We recommend that you mark the ping of the movement from motion tracker by placing a token on some sort of the map. Well, that's like when aliens, when they saw like 500 tokens, like,
yeah, we got to go. I left all the ovens on.
Note that the motion tracker will only detect moving objects. If the GM determines that your enemy stays still, it won't register. Motion detector.
That's right. It's in the name. I get it.
Detecting an enemy with a motion tracker doesn't mean that you've spotted it and it can engage it in combat. For that, you need to be in the same zone as the enemy or have line of sight to it. If the enemy is small or well hidden, the GM can also have you make an observation roll to spot it.
Sure. I mean, a lot of times in the movies, the xenomorphs were caught on motion tracker, but they were actually hiding, stealthing in the ceiling, trying to drop down on them. So they knew that they were there, but not where, so you couldn't shoot them. Makes sense.
So here are the bonuses and penalties to making a stealth mobility check, but a stealth roll. What's that?
Basically a stealth roll. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's the mobility. Mobility
if you
skill.
Don't have stealth, you can still make a mobility roll.
Yep. So if you're in the same zone, you get -1 die. Why? Because you're really close to the person.
Yeah. It's really hard to stay quiet when you're like 5 feet away. It's kind of hard.
Now, does it mean you can't do it? No, it's just a -1. Medium. So next zone over. So 10 meters maybe? 0. No modifier. Behind an open door or hatch. +2. Why? Because you can always go, I'm behind the door.
Yeah.
And
it muffles sound.
Right. Long range, +1. Extreme range, +3. You're a kilometer away.
You only get a +3? That's weird, but hey, okay.
Well, if somebody's looking for you, remember, this is versus somebody who's looking for you.
Right. Okay.
So if you're behind an open door at long range, You get +3 dice.
No.
Because those will stack.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, medium and long range won't stack, but
no.
And
long
all right,
range, yeah.
let me make sure that I'm not moving into territory that's supposed to be in the next video. 86. Nope, still going on here. Actions and initiative. All right, now we're starting to get into some nitty gritty a little bit here. When the enemy is revealed, stealth mode is over and actual combat starts. Stop counting turns and start counting rounds. The first step is to determine, oh, I wish this would have been clarified earlier. This makes much more sense now.
What?
Before you go into combat, everything is done in the 5 to 10 minute range.
Sure.
Once you enter combat, then it's down to the 5 to 10 second range.
Yep.
Okay. So you get 5 to 10 minutes worth of actions of things that you want to do as you're muffling through, trying to get position, trying to stealth, trying to figure out how to get this computer to turn on, so on and so forth. But once combat starts, then it shrinks down. This actually puts a few other things that we were talking about earlier, to me, into place.
Okay.
It makes I understand the stealth roll more now. Why is it 5 minutes? I mean, I understood it before, but why is it 5 minutes? Because you're literally not in combat mode. That's
right.
why.
Unless you're caught and then you failed.
Then you shrink down to combat mode.
Yep.
Okay, the first step is to determine who has initiative. Do this before anyone rolls dice for an action, except for sneak attacks, which described in page 90. Drawing the initiative. Remember, I changed it to a D10. Again, I haven't run Alien, but Forbidden Lands does the whole drawing initiative thing. I use a D10, but as I showed off in the first video, the game comes with cards. Grab 10 cards numbered 1 through 10. In the custom card deck for Alien role-playing game, there are 10 special initiative cards to use when drawing the initiative. If you do not have access to the custom card deck, a normal deck of cards works fine, with the ace counting as 1. All the players taking part in the conflict, whether voluntary or involuntary, each draw a card, and the GM draws 1 card for every NPC. This is called drawing the initiative. The number on the card determines the order in which you act in conflict, lowest to highest. Number 1 acts first, number 2 acts second, and so forth until everyone has acted. Place your initiative card by your character sheet so everyone can see which order you act. The GM puts her initiative cards in front of her. And the GM can either pull initiative for everybody or by groups. I personally tend to do it by groups. One type of monster gets 1 initiative, or one type of character, whatever, gets 1 initiative. A different type of character is going to get a different initiative pull. But instead of rolling or pulling 15 cards or rolling 15 dice, I just do it by groups. But that's however you want to do it at your table. When all the participants in the combat have acted at once, the round is over and new round begins. Round order remains the same throughout the whole conflict. That's a pet peeve of mine. Drawing the initiative is only done once at the start of the first round. Now, I don't like that, but this game does have features in it that will help you change your initiative if you so choose. Oh,
yeah, you really hate that.
Huh?
You really hate the 1 initiative 1 time.
Yeah, I do. Because combat is chaotic. The combat should be represented by more chaos than. But this game, like I said, right here, changing the initiative. You never draw a new initiative card during a fight, but you can exchange your initiative card and thus your initiative for the round. Notice it says for the round with another player character. This can be done at the start of the fight or at the start of the round, but never during a round. So you have to choose this at the top of the round, and then everybody continues on from there. You and the other player character must be able to speak to each other to exchange initiatives. So you can't exchange.
I completely get that. It's the exact same thing as saying, "Oh my God, this guy has a mortar." Jimmy, you get here and you use your M60 and you take out that emplacement. You're switching initiative with Jimmy because he has the most effective weapon for the job. That makes sense.
So we're okay. Slow and fast actions. When it's your time to act in the round, you can perform 1 slow action and 1 fast action, or 2 fast actions. A slow action usually consists of rolling for a skill. A fast action is quicker and doesn't always require rolling dice, though it might. See the list of typical slow and fast actions on page 88. There are also a lot of talents that can turn slow actions into fast actions, like reloading, for example. So don't feel that you're always stuck. You just might have to spend a couple character points to get better at something. Describe your actions. When it's your time to act, simply state which 2 actions you wish to perform. Describe how you go about it and roll dice to see if you are successful. Some actions will give your opponent the opportunity to perform a reactive action. Why couldn't they just call that a reaction? Read more about this under ranged combat and close combat. So, okay, let's take a look at these. I think we're almost done with this section. Crawl. Prerequisite, you have to be prone.
You can't crawl if you're standing up. That's the way it works.
See, these are all slow actions here. Burst of full auto fire. You need a firearm. And you use range combat skill.
Hey, I got a rock full of pockets, man. I'm good. A pocket full of rocks, sorry.
No, clip what he said. Shoot just shooting is a slow action.
Yeah, right? Yeah, I get it.
So, consider yourself taking aim, whatever. Stopping panic. You can't just snap your finger and have panic stop. Come on, man, calm down. It'll be okay. Let's go.
You gotta tune him up a little bit. The airplane method, exactly.
There you go.
Yeah.
And use signature. You can see these here. Now, fast action, run. I struggle with that, but I get why it's a fast action. I don't think it should be any action personally, but it pretty much just prevents you from doing 2 things in a round, but you can run and shoot. That's the point of it. You can run and shoot.
But you can only run if there's no enemy in melee range.
Yes, because if you have to do a retreat, if I remember correctly, where is it? These things aren't alphabetical. Retreat.
There it is.
Enemy at engaged range, yeah. Because you have to make a mobility check. It's very similar to Forbidden Lands. You have to make a enemy at engaged range. So if you make your mobility check, then you get away from the enemy. But I can just follow him. This is what players say all the time. Okay, the enemy retreats. Well, I just follow him. Okay, he retreats. So what that means, he successfully made his roll. You either stumbled, you're waiting, or at least you have to wait until your next action, to catch back up. At this moment in time, he's away from you and you are not trying to choke him. Mm-hmm. But you can always get back into it. I don't know, retreat is one of those things get argued a lot. Doesn't make sense that he can get away. It does make sense. He ripped away or he saw that you're about to swing a sword at him or hit you with the butt of his rifle, whatever. It's like, nope, I'm out. And because he made his roll, even if you tried to follow, he just zipped out a little quicker than you did. Yes, you can follow him, but not until your next action. I don't know why that is so hard for people. All right, aim, ranged weapon. This is one of those things that I'm gonna have to see how Alien handles it. But in Forbidden Lands, the aim is basically required before you shoot. So, but then again, you also have a bow, or it might be called something else, like ready action or whatever. But it could be a difference between a bow and a gun. What page are we on? 89. We still got a couple more pages to go. All right, helping others. We've already talked about helping others, but let's see how you can do it in combat. If you help another player, character, or NPCs perform an action, it costs you 1 action of the same kind, slow or fast. You have to state that you are helping someone before any dice are rolled. Okay, that makes sense. And we read about that on page 53. So, movement. And it explains the movement here. I don't think we have to read all of these, but there are probably some good ones. Close combat, I think we understand you're in engaged range. Doors and hatches. You can open and unlock door or hatch with a fast action. A locked door or hatch can be broken down. A typical metal door or hatch can take 10 points of damage before it gives. More sturdy doors require more force and have an armor rating. In some cases, you can open an electronically locked door with a Comtech roll, which, depending on your game master and the situation at hand, may or may not be a slow action. Because Comtech might not be a 5-second maneuver. It might be a 2-minute maneuver. Remember in Aliens when they got to the door and they hooked up the thing? That didn't take 5 seconds.
No.
So don't be surprised if your game master says you're working on this for a couple of rounds. Or says you're doing a whole turn. Vehicles handled differently, and we'll get to that in a couple weeks. Ambushes and sneak attacks. I think this is the last section. Yes, this is the last section. Key to winning conflicts, often attacking when your enemy least expect it. That is so true of all of the Year Zero engine games. To be fair, it should be all the games.
But it's so also life.
Right.
It's so real life. So, yeah.
This is going to make or break your ability to win a fight.
That's why the Colonial Marines have motion trackers. That's why they have it. So you know where the enemy is and they don't know where you are. That's great. That is intel you always want to know.
When you stalk someone and your attack catches them unawares. Is that the right way to say it? Unawares? Yeah, I think it is. It's called the sneak attack. First, roll your mobility versus your target's observation. You get a modification depending how close you want to go. Remember that chart that we read before.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, again, a clarification that I should have mentioned before because it's the same thing in the other games. It's not about necessarily where you are. It's about where you want to go. So if you're 3 zones away, or if you're at long range and you want to sneak into medium range, that's a +0 modifier, not a +1 modifier, +0. It's about where your intention to be is. So if you want
to, where you start, it's where you end up.
Right. Exactly. Okay. See the table below. If you want to attack in close combat, you usually have to move within engaged range of your enemy. If you fail, your opponent spots you at your starting distance. Draw initiative. Again, notice.
Oh, you don't even get to move. You fail right away.
Yes.
Okay. Now, that's a good distinction too. That's good to know.
It is a very important distinction. I've also seen people complain about that. I've seen people house rule it to be halfway if you have multiple zones. Whatever. We're giving you the rule as written here. Why is the rule written this way? Well, it's the same thing as the rounds. It's the same thing as the initiative. It's meant to speed up play and be simple and understandable, and let's just move on. If you want to be more pedantic at your table, just do it.
And on top of that, you were spotted because you failed a roll. Why should you be rewarded by finishing your move, being closer to the enemy you want to kill anyway? No. You failed the roll, so the defender should be favored in the situation, which means you are still where you started.
That's fair.
That's absolutely fair. You failed, so you should be punished. There you go.
If you succeed, now this is, you remember, if you succeed on your sneak attack, you get a free action, slow or fast, but not both. That way you can shoot, because remember, most shooting is a slow action. Before you draw the initiative, your target cannot block a sneak attack. It's a sneak attack.
You're right. You can't block it. That first sentence tells me aim is not necessary.
So if you succeed, you get a free action. So that's fair. I would guess with rifles you wouldn't need aim like you would with a bow.
Fair.
But attacks are always done individually by one attacker against one target. So if Heathen Dog and I were both sneaking up on somebody, we would both have to make stealth rolls, and then we'd both make our attack separately.
Right.
Ambush. A special kind of sneak attack is an ambush. You lie in wait for your enemy and attack when they come close. When you ambush someone, you roll mobility as described above, but with a modification of +2 since it's the target and not the attacker that's moving.
That's fair.
So you're standing still. When you ambush someone, you roll mobility, even though you're standing still.
You know what? I think you're rolling mobility, even though you're standing still, because yes, you are in complete good position to make that attack, but now you have to bring your weapon to bear.
There's another reason too.
I'm sure there is, but you have to go against their observation skill, right? Right before you do the ambush. Mm-hmm. So they could see movement out of the corner of their eye or a glint off of a scope or anything like that to give you away. It's still possible that you get seen.
In a narrative sense, I agree. It also is because you're the actor. Remember, was it last week when we talked about the one acting and the one being acted upon? Mm-hmm. You're the one making the role. You're the because you're the actor in this sense. So, and since everything stealth oriented is mobility, you're making the mobility check. It's not the other person that's making the check. You're the actor. You're the one attempting the ambush.
Right.
So, the ambushes can be carried out by a group and against a group of target. This follows the typical rules of stealth. The character with the lowest mobility skill rolls for the attackers, while the character with the highest observation rolls for the targets. That makes sense. Because if your buddy's clumsy, he's going to give you away.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you have a group, the dumbest one's probably going to make the noise. And if you're in a group walking around, it's the most observant person who's going to call it out.
Right. So there we go. Oh, and here are the sneak attack ambush modifications to your dice. Remember, these are to dice.
Right. And Michael Watts actually says sneak attack equals queen alien on bishop. Remember when bishop got torn in half? It was a sneak attack in engaged range. She had a -2 and she still pulled it off.
That was because of fancy camera angles.
I'm just telling you, by the rules, she rolled real well.
Yep. So there you go. Yeah, and remember, -2 means -2 dice,
Yes.
-2 base dice. So, okay, let's before we get, so we're going to start with close combat. What do we got next? It's just the general mechanics. We'll be talking about next close combat, blocking, all the stuff that we went into here. It's probably going to be a little bit longer section because this is going to be the meat of combat. So we'll get into that in the next video. All right, throw the stuff on the screen.
All right, what do we got? Got per. He says that Heathen Dog's right. Next means beside. You don't agree with that?
Beside, no. Here's the thing. This is next. If you're on top of somebody, that's next. This is next. This is next. That's next. That's next. Down there is next. Next is just anything close to you.
Okay. Michael Watt says, written by someone who has never been in actual combat.
That's about initiative.
Yeah, it's about initiative, right? Exactly. And
but
he's on board with you. He's on board with you that combat is constantly changing depending on the cause, effect, and actions of people that are doing it. So I agree.
Chaos. Yeah,
I agree. Yeah. Nerdy now at first I thought this was just a smart ass comment, but then I started thinking, Spider-Man, you can't crawl unless you're prone. I beg to differ. He's crawling on the wall, right? Crawling on a ceiling. He's not prone, technically, but I thought it was a smart ass comment. Then I think, wait a minute, in the movies, the xenomorphs did the same thing. They were crawling on walls, crawling on ceilings. Were they also considered prone?
We'll find out when we
decide that as the game master or the game mother in this thing.
But we can find out if there's more about that. I think this is specifically about you as a humanoid character. You're not playing an alien, but we can find out more about that when we talk about xenomorphs and so forth.
Right, cool. Maybe they have a special ability where if they're crawling on the walls and ceilings, they're not considered prone and can do fast and slow actions, all that stuff like normal. Maybe that's true. Hopefully we'll find out.
Is that it?
That is it.
All right. Well, what are your thoughts on how some of these chapters or these sections were written? Do you think better clarification could be there? Are we just dumb? Did we not get it? Words have meaning at the same time. We don't want the book to be 9,000 pages, but I think that some of the stuff could have been a little clarified. Because, like I said, I was pretty adamant about the zone thing because I used to have it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I got corrected by a guy who knows Forbidden Lands very well. And the zone thing is the same in Forbidden Lands as it is here. And after some back and forth, I had to say, okay, yeah, that does clarify it. I just wish the wording of it was better. And then I see that the same problem exists in this one as well. Because even chat was like,
Yeah, the wording is suspect. You're talking about, instead of constantly saying the zone, your zone, enemy zone, adjacent zone, stuff like that, it would clarify the whole thing very much.
Examples too. And this book actually is pretty good about examples in certain areas, but apparently not there. Remember, technical writing is clear, concise, consistent. That's what Palladium misses, and accurate. I wouldn't say that. I would say that this is missing the clear.
Yeah.
No. It's definitely concise. I'd say it's generally consistent in how they write, and it's accurate because the rules aren't that difficult. But and in some spots it missed the clear.
Yep.
So, all right. Look forward to talking to you guys where's my subscribe? Oop, there it is. Look forward to talking to you guys in the next video where we dive into combat even deeper.